The next morning, Assad and Mansoor were led to the execution room. Their families waited in a small room, filled with tears and broken hearts, as they prepared to see their sons for the last time. The execution was scheduled for 9 a.m., but at 9:30, Assad's father, Ali, approached a guard and asked to speak with the warden. The warden came out and apologized. "I'm afraid we won't be carrying out the execution today. The 3 certified officers who handle executions have all tested positive for COVID, so we have to reschedule." A glimmer of hope appeared in Ali's eyes. With the elections only 5 days away, he believed a new government could change everything. Meanwhile, tensions were so high that the Election Commission of Pakistan requested a 2-month delay for the elections. They explained to the Supreme Court that they lacked the manpower to oversee the process and needed the military's assistance, which was already occupied at the borders. With the postponement request under consideration, the warden sent a message to the court asking for new execution orders after 7 days. Recognizing the political situation, the court postponed the execution date by 60 days, now scheduled just 5 days before the elections. Episode 20. The delay and the plan. Mustafa, fully committed to Haider's escape plan, had recruited 6 strong men to execute a risky mission. They were tasked with kidnapping the 3 guards certified to conduct executions. Early Friday morning, the guards were taken by surprise, abducted as soon as they stepped out of their homes. That evening, Mustafa didn't visit Haider, which made Haider uneasy. He suspected the plan might not have gone smoothly. By Monday morning, Haider still hadn't received any news. Meanwhile, Warden Shoaib, feeling unwell, asked a guard to fetch Mubarak, Haider, to consult on his health. He also instructed another guard to bring Assad and Mansoor from H Unit for their usual hospital duties. As Assad and Mansoor walked down the hallway, their guard looked at them with a grin. "Looks like God has heard your prayers. The election's been postponed, and so has your execution. You're getting a 60-day extension, and the warden decided to keep you both working here until then." Relief washed over Assad and Mansoor as they entered the hospital room. Inside, Haider, visibly tired from a weekend of worry and sleepless nights, opened the door to find Warden Shoaib enjoying breakfast with Assad and Mansoor. Haider blinked in disbelief, overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events. The warden chuckled. "Surprised to see them, Mubarak?" He explained that the certified execution officers had tested positive for COVID and couldn't perform their duties. Initially, they requested a 1-week extension, but the court returned with an order delaying the execution by 60 days due to the election postponement. Now, Assad and Mansoor's execution was scheduled just 5 days before the rescheduled election. Haider embraced his cousin, savoring the relief of having additional time and knowing they'd be able to work together for the next 60 days. The escape plan would remain on hold for now, and for the moment, they shared in the happiness of being granted more time. The next day, Mustafa finally visited Haider. With a confident smile, he told Haider, "I took care of the officers. When the warden called them, I had them say they had COVID. I made it clear that if they didn't play along, there would be consequences for them and their families." Haider laughed, shaking his head in admiration. "How on earth did you come up with that idea?" Mustafa grinned. "Remember that one time I invited you out for a party? You lied to me, said you'd caught COVID at the hospital and couldn't go. So, I went to your place, dragged you out of bed, and you couldn't stop laughing because I'd seen through your lie." Haider gave Mustafa a brotherly hug. "You're a genius, my friend." Then he added, "I need you to park a black, tinted window BMW about 10 miles from the prison, somewhere discreet. Also, leave ID cards, wigs, and clothes for 5 people, enough to make it hard to recognize us." Mustafa's face showed a hint of worry. "Are you adding more people to the plan?" "Don't take unnecessary risks, Haider." Haider smiled, his eyes full of resolve. "Do you trust our friendship, Mustafa?" Mustafa relaxed, nodding. "Absolutely, brother. I'll take care of everything." Episode 21. The Great Escape. After meeting with Mustafa, Haider knew he needed to break some news to Assad and Mansoor. He had to add Sammy to the escape plan. Sammy had been outside the prison multiple times for treatments, making him familiar to the guards. This familiarity would help them avoid suspicion. When Assad heard this, he was concerned. What if Sammy finds out and tells the warden? It could ruin everything. Haider gave a reassuring smile. Don't worry. I won't tell Sammy the full plan. I'll just ask him to fake kidney pain, so he's scheduled for dialysis, where he'll be able to meet with his family. He won't know about the escape until we're out. Assad reluctantly agreed. The escape was set for Friday at noon, the perfect time when most officers would be attending Friday prayers. On Friday morning, Sammy complained to an officer about kidney pain. They admitted him to the hospital and scheduled him to go out for a doctor's visit at noon. At the designated time, Haider caused a small fire in the warden's office, diverting the guard's attention. In the confusion, he managed to take the guard's ID and ambulance keys. Assad and Mansoor, dressed in white uniforms, wheeled Sammy's bed to the back door of the hospital, where Haider used the warden's keys to unlock the exit. They transferred Sammy to the ambulance and prepared for the getaway. Haider, dressed as a police officer, took the driver's seat. Assad sat beside him in the front, while Mansoor and Sammy sat in the back. Haider scanned the guard's ID to open the gate. The guard on duty glanced at Sammy in the back and casually said, "Off to the hospital again, Sammy? Good luck." Sammy nodded, not suspecting a thing. "Yes, sir," Sammy replied, keeping his composure. Once they were clear of the prison, Sammy looked at Mansoor and said, "I don't think I've seen you before. Are you new?" Mansoor, staying in character, replied, "Yes, just joined." They continued driving in silence, heading toward a black, tinted window BMW parked about 10 miles from the prison, exactly as Haider had planned with Mustafa. When they reached the car, Sammy's eyes widened as he saw Haider step out of the ambulance in a police uniform. "Haider, it's you?" Sammy stammered. Haider grinned. "Yes, Sammy. The plan worked. Now let's get out of these uniforms and into the car." The group quickly changed into civilian clothes, complete with wigs and fake IDs. They left the ambulance on the roadside, then drove off in the BMW. Back at the prison, it took the officers over an hour to extinguish the fire in the warden's office. By the time things calmed down, a guard noticed that Sammy was missing from his bed. He radioed the I block, only to be told that Sammy had gone to the hospital for a scheduled appointment. Realizing something was wrong, the guard alerted the warden. The warden rushed to the hospital, where he confirmed that Sammy had never arrived. Checking the security footage, he saw Haider, Assad, Mansoor, and Sammy exiting the back door. Warden Shoaib had 48 hours to find them before being required to file an official report, so he called upon his most loyal guards and tasked them with locating the Mafroors, escapees. Meanwhile, Haider and his group headed towards Sammy's house in Swat, nestled high in the mountains where the local terrain made it easy to avoid detection. As they approached Swat, they encountered a checkpoint manned by the Punjab police. The officers requested their IDs, but with their wigs and fake identities, they passed through without issue. Once safely inside Swat, Sammy turned to Haider, visibly relieved. "No one will be able to find us up here. My house is hidden in the mountains. No one would even think to look there." Curious, Sammy asked, "Haider, why didn't you tell me about this plan?" Haider smirked. "Look closely at these two. Do you recognize them?" Sammy examined Assad and Mansoor more carefully and finally realized who they were. "You're the ones on death row, accused of terrorism." Haider explained, "If I told you beforehand, you'd have been too nervous to pull this off. You've spent years in prison and may not have agreed. But without you, we couldn't have succeeded." They arrived at Sammy's secluded mountain home 2 hours later. After cleaning up, Haider went into town to buy enough food to last them a month, minimizing the need to leave the house. On the way to Swat, Assad had seen a familiar face, Afzal, the mango juice vendor, working at a roadside stand. Shocked, he kept the sighting to himself until they reached Sammy's house. When Haider returned with the supplies, Assad pulled him aside. "Haider, you're not going to believe who I saw at a bus stop, Afzal, the mango juice vendor." Haider's eyes widened. "Are you certain? If Afzal is still around, he might have information that could prove our innocence." Assad thought for a moment. But what if he's working with the government? Approaching him could be a trap. Haider nodded. You're right. We can't take any chances right now. For now, let's stay hidden and see if an opportunity arises. As they discussed their next steps, Assad shared another encounter he had recently. A meeting with PTI's, Pakistan's true identity leader, Salman Khan. During a brief attorney visit, Salman expressed his sympathies, having read about their case. He told Assad, if my party comes to power, I'll make sure you're freed. But if the current government stays in control, I fear they'll carry out the execution to maintain their popularity. Hearing this, Haider grew thoughtful. It's a small hope, but it's something. If we can stay hidden long enough, we might have a real chance at proving our innocence. With that, the group resolved to lay low, relying on each other's support and waiting for a chance to clear their names. Assad agreed. We have to tread carefully. For now, let's lie low and focus on our plan. Episode 22, The Note and the Escape. During a secret visit with his childhood friend Mustafa, Haider handed him a small note, slipping it discreetly into his hand. Read this only when you get home, Haider whispered. When Mustafa arrived home, he unfolded the note carefully and read Haider's instructions. Haider had detailed a plan of precautions for Mustafa to follow. He asked Mustafa to leave a key under the right tire of a black BMW and to check that the car was in place every day at 1 p.m. Haider instructed Mustafa to keep an eye on the car, and if it was ever missing, that was the signal to act immediately. Mustafa would need to alert Assad's and Mansoor's families, urging them to leave Pakistan without delay. Haider warned that, if captured, the government might try to extract information from their families through any means necessary, including threats and torture. Haider added that Mustafa should also leave the city once he'd done his part. He provided Mustafa with a website where they could exchange encrypted messages and told him to abandon his current phone. Make sure no one can trace you, the note concluded. For a full week, Mustafa dutifully passed by the parked BMW every day at 1 p.m. But on Friday, right after Jummah prayers, he noticed the car was missing. Immediately, he dialed Assad's and Mansoor's families, who were staying in Rawalpindi. They packed quickly, booked the earliest flight they could, and left for Dubai within hours. When they arrived in Dubai, Mustafa shared the good news. Your sons escaped, he told Assad's father. But please, for now, I don't know their exact location. Just know that they're safe. Jail officials have 48 hours to find them before the CIA gets involved. If they fail, the CIA will likely come after both of you. With that reassurance, Assad's father nodded, grateful but understanding the danger. He quietly urged his family to stay cautious and let the situation unfold. Back at the prison, the warden and his guards were frantic. The hours ticked away, and after 48 hours with no progress, the warden had no choice but to escalate the situation. He contacted the CIA for assistance, officially reporting the escape. Within hours, CIA head Asif arrived at the prison to conduct a full investigation. After being briefed, Asif's first step was to notify the sitting government officials. The news created instant panic among them. They had counted on Assad and Mansoor's high-profile sentencing as a means of maintaining power. The revelation that the Mafroor's escapees had slipped through the system rattled the government's confidence, casting a shadow over their political image. Determined to regain control, they ordered Asif to treat this case with the highest priority. The next day, the warden, along with his closest guards, was summoned before the government's investigative board. They were instructed to explain how they had allowed such a high-risk escape to take place under their watch. The interrogation was intense, with every detail scrutinized. What were you doing when the fire alarm went off? One board member demanded, fixing his gaze on the warden. I was in my quarters, the warden replied, sweat beading on his forehead. The fire was reported to me, and I immediately sent guards to check. I never imagined it was part of an escape plan. And what about the access to the hospital? Another member asked sharply. Why were Assad and Mansoor allowed to work there? The warden swallowed nervously. They had been assigned as hospital aides to reduce their stress levels. They were facing execution, and it was a gesture of compassion. I didn't think they would use it as an opportunity to escape. The questions grew more pointed. One investigator leaned forward, drilling into the warden's credibility. It appears that your guard was willing to hand over his ID to someone posing as a medical officer, with no additional checks. Are you aware of the risks this lack of security poses to our entire judicial process? The warden stammered, feeling the walls closing in. Sir, I had no reason to suspect Mubarak. He was a doctor on the street and, as far as I knew, was committed to helping inmates. At this, Asif stepped in, dropping a bombshell revelation. Mubarak wasn't who you thought. His real name is Haider, and he's Assad's cousin. He entered this prison under a false identity, with a clear objective to aid in the escape. The warden paled. Asif continued. Additionally, we have footage of the escape. After examining the security cameras, we identified that the ambulance was used as a cover vehicle, followed by a black BMW with tinted windows. The prisoners were transported out of sight, but the car left a traceable pattern that our team is tracking. The board members exchanged worried glances, realizing the level of sophistication involved in the escape plan. They gave Asif full authority to expand his investigation and instructed him to bring back any leads. The CIA wasted no time disseminating news of the breakout. They alerted all regional checkpoints, circulated descriptions, and shared the security footage. Asif made the warden watch the video, emphasizing the professionalism with which the plan had been executed. The footage showed Haider, Assad, Mansoor, and Sami moving swiftly, loading into the BMW and disappearing from the camera's view. We know the car traveled toward the northern regions, possibly Swat, Asif told the warden. Haider's contacts have assisted in hiding them, and they're likely seeking refuge in the mountains. It's an ideal place to vanish.